Hi, I'm Robert Hooks, and welcome to this special edition of the Urban Roundtable. My guest tonight is one of this country's most successful, innovative land developers and all-around entrepreneurs. And for the last 2 years, or over the last 2 years, he's been battling in the courts all the way up to the Supreme Court. He's here tonight to talk about that, to talk about the reason he's here in the Southland, and to talk about future projects that he has on his agenda. I'm talking about John W. McDonald. John.
Good evening, Dr.
Welcome to the Roundtable.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I'd like to start by asking you to talk a little bit about that case I just mentioned in the Supreme Court. The case is against Domino's Pizza. So, for those of us who don't really know that much about the case, talk about it for a minute.
Well, we were the preferred developers for Domino's Pizza, and we're developing stores from in Las Vegas and other parts of the country. When we were asked to renegotiate our lease by Debbie Peer with Domino's Pizza, and up on asking us that, I asked Debbie to send me a draft copy of the changes that she would like to make in the lease, you know, the modifications she wanted to make to the lease. And one of the modifications that she wanted to make was to have a clause in it that they could send me a 30-day written notice in order to cancel a 30-year lease. And
let's get her name straight again.
Okay, Debbie Peer Phillips.
Okay, right.
And she is the head of in charge of lease negotiations for Domino's Pizza out of Ann Arbor, Michigan. And of course, if you have a clause, such a clause as that in the lease, you don't even have a valid lease. And for quite naturally, I refused to do so, and then that led to an all-out assault against me, whereas they basically threatened that I would do it. If not, they would financially ruin me. And from that point, they proceeded to do just that.
To ruin you?
To ruin me. We had other stores that we were getting ready to break ground on to build for them. And we were in the process, we had a guidance line with one of the local banks in Las Vegas there. And the guidance line, we had to furnish the bank with a estoppel certificate from Domino's. And a estoppel certificate basically is a document that really tells and kind of solidifies that there is a lease and what the terms of the lease are. And also an assignment on the lease, which the bank had asked for an assignment on all the income of the lease if I should default or whatever.
Right.
So that was, I made the request to Domino's, they made no response to me. Then the bank finally wrote a letter and sent a FedExed a letter up to Debbie Peer and made the request themselves for them to execute the estoppel certificates and the assignment. There was a conversation that took place between Debbie Peer and the banker, whereas Debbie Peer advised the banker that Domino's Pizza Corporation would not be signing an estoppel certificate, and that JWM Investments knew the reason why. The banker, unfortunately, was someone that I didn't really have a history with, even though I had a history with the bank, but the banker I was used to working with that always handled my accounts had left the bank and gone with another bank. And so at that point in time, he wrote me a letter documenting what Debbie Peer had told him and said, based off this conversation, we're going to call your loans in. And quite naturally, Las Vegas is a very small town, and I always dealt with small banks. I never dealt with large banks. I always preferred to walk in and do business with the person that's going to make the decision to loan me the money. And so as a result of that particular bank starting an action against me, a lot of the other banks sent me demand letters and followed suit.
It rained and it poured.
It rained and it pours. And of course, we took the cash that we had. We kept debt servicing the loans. We didn't file for bankruptcy at that point in time, but we kept debt servicing the loans and that sort of thing. Then I had stores that were in escrow to be sold to other investors. And again, you have to have this estoppel certificate in order to complete the sale.
Sure.
Domino's would not give me an estoppel certificate then, again. So as a result, we created more problems because one of the investors that was going through a 1031 tax-free exchange, and you only have 6 months to complete those transactions. We were at the last hour in completing that, which means that was going to be, which meant there was going to be some tax liability that was going to be borne on him. I had to cover those tax liabilities to keep from getting sued by him. Prior to us getting that point, Domino's then stopped paying rent on the stores that they occupied and were doing business out of.
They wanted to take you under.
They wanted to take me under. So they stopped paying rent. And then on one of the stores we had an application in at the Las Vegas Water District. Debbie Pear called from Ann Arbor, Michigan to Las Vegas, Nevada, got some lady in the water district on the phone, had this lady to take me off of the application as the developer, and had her to put Domino's and herself on there. And I want to remind you that whenever you go into the water district to make an application for a water permit, to put in a water meter, you literally have to take a copy of the deed.
Okay.
To prove ownership. And so to this day, I still have not figured out how that she was able to do that.
Wow.
On the phone. And so at this point in time, I mean, after they stopped paying rent on the stores and we were debt service on our loans, I finally was forced to file a Chapter 11.
You filed the Chapter 11 then?
Chapter 11 bankruptcy. A corporate bankruptcy, not a personal bankruptcy, but a corporate bankruptcy. And Domino's inadvertently filed a lawsuit against me.
Personally?
Against me and JWM Investments.
Oh.
Okay. And from that point, after they filed the lawsuit, the strategy was to make themselves a creditor in the bankruptcy. So they filed a bogus lawsuit to make themselves a creditor. Then it allowed them, once they made this claim, then it allowed them to consider themselves as a creditor, whereas they came in and basically drove the creditors committee in order to push to get a trustee appointed in the case.
This is legal?
If you got enough money, it's legal.
Wow.
If you have enough money, it's legal.
So move us forward. You got to sue these people.
Well, I mean, we wound up filing at that point in time, we filed a 1981 civil rights action against them in the bankruptcy court on behalf of the corporation.
Now, how did you use the civil rights thing? I mean, what was the basis?
Well, the basis of the civil rights case, civil rights violation, is basically what they had done to me as far as trying to ruin me in the business. And JWM is 100% minority owned.
I see.
So it allows you to file your case under that. And then I filed a separate case, personally, just in the regular federal courts. So what they did is work with the trustee. Now the trustee was someone that they were very close to. So they worked with the trustee and they settled the claim that I had filed on behalf of JWM. They settled the claim with the bankruptcy trustee for $45,000. And against my protest. But at this point in time, when a trustee steps in, I've lost all rights. And so it left the other claim out there. But what their whole intention was, because a lot of the assets, a lot of our personal assets and our homes and things of that nature was held in a trust. That luckily I had created this trust back in 1986.
Glad you did.
Yes, 1996.
Glad you did.
I'm very glad I did, because one of the primary assets was an ownership interest in a 40-acre project that we have in North Las Vegas.
Okay.
And so, and the trustee had literally told me that he had plans to penetrate that trust and try to get at those assets.
Jeez.
And so meanwhile, I mean, we were fighting that. They settled to one claim. Then one of the federal judges, a judge by the name of Judge Hicks, who was hearing this case on a preliminary basis, my personal case, decided that I didn't have standings to sue Domino's as an individual. So kicked that case out. Then we appealed it to the Ninth Circuit.
Ninth Circuit.
So we appealed it to the Ninth Circuit. Meanwhile, I brought on an attorney by the name of Alan Lichtenstein, who's the head of the ACLU, and he's also a professor there at UNLV. Basically, Alan Lichtenstein took it on as a class project, and I agreed to pay all the expenses.
This is at the Ninth Circuit
At the
now.
Ninth Circuit.
Okay, right.
So we won at the Ninth Circuit.
Yeah.
And Domino's had agreed, Domino's had always made the threat, I mean, and they did in writing, which basically told me that, look, if we, if your attorney was smart, they would tell you that there's no way that you could prevail in a case like this. And basically what they were saying to me, we got more money than you got, we can beat you, we can keep it tied up.
Sure.
Even if you win on appeal, through the appeal process, we'll still prevail. And that's exactly what they told me. And they said, based on this, we're going to offer you $20,000
Oh, jeez.
to go home. And actually they had cost me in actual hard assets over $8.5 million. Hard assets. And I don't even count the cash that we spent.
So they're talking settle 20,000. Yeah, that's insulting and degrading.
Exactly. So at that point in time, I mean, we started to focus on that. And to be honest with you, Domino's is absolutely right. It's hard to take on a corporate giant like Domino's when they can afford to hire attorneys, and attorney fees are basically a write-off to them. Yeah. They can write off it as a business expense.
Big
so
fish.
So it means nothing to them.
Right.
And so they were right in that capacity. And so at that point in time, I wrote a letter back to Joel Graziani, who's vice president and general counsel for Domino's, and basically told Joel, you're absolutely right in everything you're saying. I said, but where I'm going to wage my war at is in the court of public opinion.
Right.
I said, so we're going to take to the streets. That's where I'm going to wage my war at. And so we decided that, I have what they call a freight line. It's a sports chassis. It's a truck. I bought this truck to pull a horse trailer with. Okay. And I have a 38-foot overall and length horse trailer. And I never really did much with the truck or trailer. I mean, both of them were practically brand new. I'd never really driven it that much. Mm-hmm. So we got our staff together and we just all focused on what can we do to challenge Domino's. So we came up with the concept. I asked someone to check into where these banners were made to go inside these street buses, city buses and stuff. Right. And they researched and come up with a company called Pictographics there in Las Vegas. So I went to Pictographics and had them to create a banner.
Dress your trailer.
On both sides of the truck and trailer. Okay. And we literally made the truck and trailer a moving billboard. Right. We came up with T-shirts, Boycott Domino's T-shirts. We came up with a 800 number, 1-866-5-BOYCOTT. We came up with a website, www.don'teatdominospizza.com.
So you really went to the streets.
And we took it to the streets. And then we realized that Domino's is basically a delivery. So 95% of their business is delivery.
95%?
95% is delivery.
So that you can't go into Domino's and sit down and eat a pizza.
Exactly. So what we did, we went out and bought a bunch of fax machines. Mm-hmm. And some of my girls, my kids, got them and their friends. So on Friday nights, starting at 6 o'clock, everybody was calling in, keeping Domino's phones tied up.
Oh, wow.
So we programmed all these fax machines to dial Domino's numbers too. So it'll just, I mean, on a fax machine, just constantly keep dialing it.
Sure.
And so you hang up, it'll just dial right back. So we had all these fax machines doing it. So we literally were able just to shut down the stores that they had in Las Vegas. They couldn't make calls through.
How interesting.
And meanwhile, we did a press conference. We left Las Vegas, my wife and I. We had a bunch of T-shirts printed up. We had our staff doing mail-outs and all this kind of stuff. And we drove during the day from Las Vegas to LA, took the 10 into San Antonio, Texas, and we went right directly to the Enron building. We stopped at the Enron building. We gave out T-shirts there, but we only drove during the day where people could read these read our signs on the truck and trailer, and talking on talk radio shows as we traveled. And every chance, after you got certain places, you see signs along the freeway that says Domino's at the next exit. We get off at the next exit, go find that Domino's, pull up in front of it, so they can see that trailer, and then we take on that. So we did that, and more so by accident than anything. By the way, we were going to the Super Bowl. We wound up driving to the Super Bowl in New Orleans. That particular year, the Super Bowl was held in New Orleans. And went down the main street there.
In your truck and
trailer. We couldn't get out. We got out and couldn't turn around. So the police department came out. They actually escorted us. We told them where we were trying to get to, which was the Superdome. And they actually escorted us there. So we passed out all our T-shirts and everything we had. We had to replenish. But the next day when we left out of New Orleans, we drove on to Florida, and then cut across to Atlanta. Ironically enough, one of their largest franchisees is right there off the 10 between New Orleans and Florida. And so a lot of the stores we were hitting in those areas really frustrated him, which he put a lot more pressure on Domino's. But make a long story short, the end result is we really just stayed out there, and we did that for about 2 years.
Your whole family?
On the weekends, if we were in Las Vegas, we'd travel the Strip. My whole family would. But most time it's just my wife and I on the roads. And then we have a guy that we brought on later on. That's his whole entire job. Is to keep that truck and trailer out there. So we've now logged close to 370,000 miles on that truck, traveling all over. I mean, and it had a major effect on Domino's. Domino's came back to the table and made an offer. We didn't accept the offer.
Still not a good offer.
Still not a good offer. I mean, I wanted them to make me whole again. And we solicited help and had help offered to us. We had I don't know who the benefactor was, but we had a benefactor that actually started picking up the cost of the T-shirts. And so we wound up, when Domino's appealed to the Supreme Court, it was one of 5 cases that was selected to be heard. And we went to Washington, D.C., December.
Of 2005?
2005.
And the case was heard?
The case was heard.
You were there?
We were there, my whole family, we all went up.
Now, how does that work? Do you individually talk to those?
No, you don't. You don't. No, I mean, we were just. They had a special section for us to sit in, to where we could just observe. But we had probably, I think it's probably 14 attorneys there on our side, and the NAACP actually supported us. The Black Chamber of Commerce supported us. The NAACP's Legal Defense Fund. They had attorneys there. The Minority Business Council, they supported us. They had counsels there. The state of New York supported us in amicus briefs. They had attorneys there. We had, I think, it was 9 states and the Bahamas and Virgin Islands that actually supported us. And Domino's, I think, had about 7 or 8 states supporting them.
So what was the end result? What came out of the Supreme?
We still don't know.
Still don't know.
We still don't know. And there's no way of knowing what the, what it will be. I mean, at best, it'll be. It's a draw, right? We just don't know.
Sure, you don't know, but it would be nice if they made you whole again after that. So the experience there at the Supreme Court, certainly was well worth moving it all the way. It's got to be historic.
It's a one-in-a-lifetime experience. I mean, it really, I mean, I think our family as a whole has learned a lot from it. I mean, especially the kids. I think having them being exposed to something like that, I mean, it certainly gives you a different mindset. And to know that, I mean, I'm still not for sure that there's that the justice system is really, it's not equal. Let me just put it that way.
Right.
I mean, it truly is the highest dollar.
That had to be an incredible experience for you. So do you have any idea when you'll know?
It could be any time.
Could be any time. Now the court is a new court practically now.
And our case could be reheard, from what I'm told.
Oh, okay.
It could be actually be reheard because one of the justices was not sitting. You know, the new justice was not sitting, so he could choose to rehear it.
Right, Alito was not there then.
He was not there.
Yeah. Was the Chief Justice?
Chief Justice Roberts was there.
There.
I was very impressed with him.
He had to be just there, huh?
He was just there.
Right.
I really liked the questions that he asked. I was very impressed with the questions he asked. And for the most part, he seemed to be fair. Kennedy seemed to be very, very fair. Sandra Day O'Connor seemed to be very fair. From what I was told, it actually takes 3 justices to actually vote to hear a case.
3 of them.
3 of them.
Right.
Have to vote, decide they want to hear a case, and that's what gets us started.
Right. So you got that.
So we certainly feel like we got that.
Now, if they rehear the case, is that good or bad for you?
You know, I would have to say if they reheard the case, I would have to say it'd be against us.
Against you. Right.
I would certainly say it because the new justice that they you know, Alito, I mean,
Yeah. Well,
I mean, most of these guys, you can kind of, I mean, we actually got into doing the research on what the justice's background was. I mean, something I never thought I'd have any interest in ever doing.
You mean Alito?
On Alito, on all of them.
On all of them? Okay. Yeah.
And so, I mean, Scalia, we knew where he was.
Of course.
Clarence Thomas, we knew where he was going to be. Clarence and Alito always voted. I mean, Scalia always vote together.
Yeah, I know. That's I want to comment on that, but I won't.
Well, the one thing about, I will say this right here, whether it's right or wrong, I was so disappointed in Clarence Thomas. I mean, he literally set up it like he was asleep.
Really? Really?
I mean, he literally was slumped down.
Such an important minority case, civil rights case.
I mean, with his eyes closed, I mean, as if he was asleep.
Amazing.
And we were sitting, I mean, unfortunately, on the same end he was sitting on.
Thurgood Marshall has to be turning over in his grave.
I mean, I would think so.
Yeah.
I would think so.
John, before we leave that Supreme Court subject in the case, what is the specific law that the judges have to consider in order to make this thing right?
Well, what's at stake here is there are a lot of the circuit courts that are split on this right here, to whether or not a individual in my situation can literally sue where he's the sole stockholder of a corporation. What Domino's argument was is that JWM had no race. And that was Domino's argument. And the fact that if JWM had no race, with me being 100% owner of it, it would allow corporate America to force minorities to either protect their assets by forming a corporation, which most individuals do, or protect their civil rights. So we as minorities will, I mean, if Domino's win, we as minorities have to make a choice. Do you protect your civil rights, or do you protect your corporate and your personal assets?
That's the choice you have to make.
And if Domino's win, it's going to set in my opinion, and a lot of the attorneys that we've had working on this thing, it's going to set minorities back 100 years.
Oh, absolutely. Easily.
I mean, and it will literally give corporate America a license to do whatever they want to do. And that's really what they're pushing for. That's exactly what they're pushing for. If you look at how all these various companies, I mean, all companies are merging together. Why? Because they can make more money.
Sure.
I mean, this morning I stopped to fill up. I paid $3.18 for a gallon of gasoline. Last week, I mean, I was at $2.70, the same gas.
Right. Yeah.
And so,
well, it'd be interesting to see how that goes. And you can't sleep too well at night thinking about this. I mean, I'm sure you do. I mean,
we do. I mean, you know, you literally, even though that's a phase a challenge that we've taken on and a battle we've taken on. But still, I mean, even though when it first started, I was very bitter. It was all I could deal with. It was all I can think about. I mean, we as a family and a unit, we've had to kind of come to conclusion. You know, you got to go back out. You got to start making a living. Right. You got to move on. I mean, and whatever happened, it happened. I mean, we made that decision that we was going to take this on. I mean, my family as a whole, because we knew that it was not going to be easy, and we knew it was going to be an uphill battle. But I mean,
well, I know that I know our audience, hearing you tell this story, is behind you all the way.
Well, I appreciate that.
Now you move on. You were involved in a land swap, a historic land swap deal, Santa Cruz, California. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Well, I was asked to get involved in, because the state of Nevada has, North Las Vegas had 7,500 acres, that the Bureau of Land Management had decided they were not going to allow it to be auctioned off, but you have to find environmental sensitive property that you can exchange for it.
I see. In order to make it public.
In order to make it public.
Right.
And the state of California had floated a bond to try to purchase the Old Coast areas, which is 7,500 acres in Santa Cruz. It has about, I think it's about 5.2 miles of ocean frontage and beach frontage property. And the owners of the coast areas lived in Switzerland. And so there was an individual came in to Nevada from Canada, and he was introduced to me and called me and made an appointment, and he came in, and he was very interested in 7,500 acres. I had read about the 7,500 acres in Santa Cruz, and that the bond measure had failed. So I suggested to him that I thought that perhaps the 7,500 acres in Santa Cruz could be purchased and exchange that into Nevada. So he agreed that they would be willing to take a run at it. And so they hired me to be their person on the ground and to navigate it through and everything. So I started working first with the city of North Las Vegas and got them to agree that they would support doing a land exchange. And by the way, it also requires federal legislation.
Oh, it does.
To do the exchange. Then I went down to went to Santa Cruz, looked at the property, looked the owners up, found out they were in Switzerland, contacted them in Switzerland, flew to Switzerland, met with them, made 3 separate trips over there. The 3rd trip I was able to get an option, negotiate it with them. We hired engineers to go in to examine everything. We hired an environmental group to go in to figure out all of the environmental sensitive issues that were there, and that what would make this land important to the state of California and the environmental groups.
Right.
So I met with the environmental groups to let them know what our thoughts were, what our proposals were. I met with the state director of the BLM, a guy by the name of Ed Hasty, there in Sacramento.
The Bureau of Land Management.
Bureau of Land Management.
Right.
Met with him, got an appointment, met with him, told him what we wanted to do, met with the Board of County Supervisors in Santa Cruz. And I went in convincing them that, look, you know, we don't want to develop this property. But what we do want to do, we do want to exchange this property for the property in North Las Vegas. And once they became convinced of that, they were wholeheartedly supported behind me. And we started the process. And it took, you know, several weeks to kind of get everybody on board. We made trips to Washington, D.C. We got at the time, it was Governor Pete Wilson and Governor Miller in Nevada. I actually got them talking. We got Senator Harry Reid to agree that he would support the legislation if California would allocate the water out of the Colorado River to service the 75 acres in North Las Vegas.
Good old Harry, always making deals.
Always making deals. They never miss an opportunity to do that.
The ultimate politician, Harry Reid. I happen to like the guy a lot. But anyway.
He is. He's a very steadfast guy. Very steadfast guy. And so we were able to get that done. Through the course of that, I received a phone call from the Secretary of Resources, Governor Douglas Wheeler, who informed me that there was an individual organization that was interested in perhaps acquiring the property and completing everything. And so we negotiated a deal with them when they called me up. And to be more frank and honest with you, basically what had happened was I called Brian up and after I talked to these guys, and I basically told them, I said, look, we would sell this property for $50 million, but we got to have a $5 million escrow deposit, non-refundable. And I said, so there's no negotiation. And I was pretty firm on that. And so I called Brian and I told Brian, I said, Brian, I said, hypothetically, Brian, I said, would you want to sell your position or sell Coast Dairies? And he said, oh, so I might. He said, I said, what would it take to get it? He said, I don't know. He said, probably, I don't know, 40 million.
40?
That's what he told me, 40 million. And he had 25 million in it. And so I said, well, Brian, anything over the 40 million I get to keep, right? So he shared with me, he said, yes. I said, Brian, send me a letter to that effect. I said, I want to frame it. I said, you know, write me a letter and fax it to me. And he did, and 3 days later I get this contract. I get this contract. And it was from an environmental group. And they came forward, cashed us out, and basically helped us support to get the legislation through all the senators that now the state of Nevada can just sell their land, just auction their land off. And they allow Nevada to auction off the 7,500 acres there. But this deal was a major part of making that happen.
Amazing. Well, I said you were innovative, and you certainly were. Now, that's an incredible story, the land swap. Because I really didn't know you could swap the land. I mean,
they do. I mean, they've done some land swap. I mean, one of the things that had happened to force them to start legislating that is the fact that there were land being sold off. Basically, the playing field was not level. I mean, it was just a major developer that were able to go in and meet the requirements in order to purchase the land. And so they came up with the concept that any public land is sold off, there needs to be land traded back that has some value for the public. And most certainly, Coast Dairies represented that. I mean, 7,500 acres here, 7,500 acres in Nevada. So it certainly represented that.
Great. Let's move now, I mean, because you're here in Southern California now. Now, I understand that you were brought in to develop some land here. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, Actually, what we were really focused on is finding land in urban communities that we can come in and do senior apartments, assisted living, and skilled nursing facilities on. We were focused on doing campus-type developments that catered toward the senior market. And there's such a shortage of senior housing here. And so that was our primary focus. And I was invited down to look here in Inglewood. And I was invited down by Bishop Brookins and came in and started looking around, and we basically identified this property here. And my background is more from the commercial retail. At one point in time, I took care of all the anchor tenant leasing for Allied Development out of Texas. And they were probably one of the largest shopping centers. They were the largest in South Texas, let me put it that way. And I did all the anchor tenant leasing. And so that's therefore what my background was in. And we had worked on a project there in North Las Vegas. We have 40 acres there. And I had gotten all of the entitlements to do a hospital, senior apartments, assisted living, skilled nursing, drugstore, bank, hospitality, hotel, all on this 40 acres. And Prudential Huntington Page were the ones that were actually providing the financing through HUD. So when they offered me the opportunity, they said, John, look, if you want to identify markets such as this in the urban area, we'll come in, we'll basically give you 100% financing on anything of this type of market. But it has to be in the urban areas. But the only thing off that kind of density was Southern California, Los Angeles. That's the closest thing to Nevada that would offer that type of density that you can make something like this work. So that's really what brought me here. And so it's more by accident, you know, that we got
to Inglewood?
To Inglewood.
Right.
And it was more by accident that we got involved in the commercial retail. Because the land that was here in the city of Inglewood really caters itself more toward commercial retail and not, you know, the senior apartment aspect of of developments.
So now let's talk a little bit, John, about this Inglewood Promenade project. Tell us what that is.
But when we, one of the things that we are very focused on, and I always believe in identifying niche markets. Example, McDonald's. I don't like McDonald's hamburgers, but my 5-year-old daughter, I mean, before she could even talk, could pick out a McDonald's sign, I don't care how far away. I mean, that's what she wanted. And so McDonald's has certainly done a good, job on marketing, and they've done a good job on their niche market. And so that's what I'm primarily focused on, is creating a niche market. And we feel like that niche market is in the urban area. But one of the things that we saw that there's a real need for, not just here, but all across the country, is to really focus on economic development. And what I have found out about is there's a lot of money out there for economic development, the right type of economic development.
Federal money, are we talking about? Or?
Not just federal money, but for example, CalPERS money.
Okay.
Let's look at CalPERS. I mean, CalPERS has set aside, they have several $billions they have set aside in funds that is earmarked to go into the urban areas. But one of the things that they have not seen the type of product coming out of the urban market that they're used to. And when I say the type of product, they've not seen commercial retail centers being built in these markets that would be categorically the same as being built in Newport Beach or Beverly Hills or some of these areas here. That's the type of environment they're used to. So there's several things we've done here that we're proposing to do in the Inglewood Promenade development. One of which is that we came up with more of a model or a thought or a strategy of how you can leave part of the wealth in the community.
Which is so vital.
So vital. And it's very important to come into a community like Inglewood, not just Inglewood, but any urban area, any minority community. So what we've the strategy we are using here is all of this whole entire development. Identify locally owned insurance agents. And divide it up so they can insure the whole entire development. Not just for a year, but make a commitment to where they're guaranteed 10 years.
Long term.
Long term. That type of revenue with locally owned businesses like that, that money come right back into the community. And hopefully they are able to hire from within the community.
It would have to be a long term in order for it to, yes.
To make it work. The other thing is now, even though for financing purposes, we have put together what I believe to be a very superb team. Some of these guys have worked with us over in Las Vegas, such as our architects, McCarthy Building Companies. This size of a project, one of the critical things that lenders are going to want to know, one, that you can get it leased up. Number two, that you can limit the risk. I mean, the highest risk of doing anything like this right here on development such as this is during a construction period.
Okay.
So what I did there is got with McCarthy Building Companies and said, okay, McCarthy Building Companies, we want you to be the general contractor on this development. But we want you to commit that you're going to work with the minority general contractors and subcontractors that we so choose to have you to work with.
Did you get an agreement on that?
Oh, yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, they wholeheartedly agree. They have a very good diversity department. So they wholeheartedly agreed to do that. But we explained to them that what we wanted to create was a model using the Inglewood Promenade, a model that could be used to create and do economic development in the minority communities.
Sure.
And that's really the whole focus of how can you enrich the community, how can you keep money in the community. And so by doing this, this is how it can be done. And we have talked to some of the minority contractors. For example, let's say if there's a contractor that has $1 million bonding limit or a license limit, we'll work with him to make sure that he gets a contract to build one of these buildings that covers $1 million, that won't put him over his license limit. And the whole thought process is, he in turn will hire minority workers.
Absolutely.
Okay? And keep in mind, corporate America don't lose anything. So we're not cutting out corporate America. State Farm Insurance on the corporate level is not going to lose a dime. The only thing we're forcing them to do is share the wealth.
Share the wealth.
In the community. It's not going to cost them a thing.
And it's about time that they do that.
And it doesn't cost them anything. McCarthy Building Company, they don't lose a dime. They simply make an overriding fee off the overall project.
That's incentive?
That's incentive enough.
Yes.
So they're going to make their money. We want to, the architects, I use PJL. PJL is about a 250-man firm. They've done a lot of work for us in the past. The key thing is about them, they're big enough that they can turn over the work, they can turn the work around for us. They have agreed, they're a very diverse firm, but they have agreed to work with locally owned minority architectural firm. Again, to design the out parcels.
Sure.
So that way, the community is still benefiting. We've got a community center design in here because that's what the community said they wanted. So we got that design and donate that back to them. We got a police substation design in here. We've got a computer lab design in here for the community.
For training?
Training for kids to come over if they have issues, need to use a computer, or if anybody in the community needs to use a computer.
Sure.
We'll have them here. We've encouraged the franchisors to work with locals who might want to get involved in opening a franchise business. And so that's here. The security company we're using is a minority-owned security company. You know, so that's how we have pieced together, and we are encouraging the retailers to hire from within the community. They have several job training programs here in Inglewood that apparently doing a very good job.
And they'll tap those sources. Sure.
we bought in a movie theater. The community said they wanted a movie theater. We bought in Maya Cinema.
This is a complex, movie complex.
Right. It'd be 16 screens.
16 screens.
16 screens.
John, this sounds great, but you know, recently here in Inglewood, there's been tremendous problems with the minority community, minority organizations, minority companies, and actually even marching on City Hall because there's been a problem with hiring minorities, minority participations, and you know, in the projects that have already been done here. What does this project do to fix that?
Basically, what we're doing is committing up front. We're committing up front. All of the major companies that we're using, that we've contracted with, as a part of the agreement with them, have committed to doing what we've asked them to do. And we just absolutely just go ahead and get them committed up front. For example, as I stated with you about McCarthy Building Companies, I have spoke to Brenda Curry, who owns has offices right here. She's a general contractor. And she was one of the ones that had tried to get work at one of the other developments here and couldn't get a contract. I think she may have bidded on it, but I think she was told that her bid was too high. Now, I think I mentioned to you, I don't believe in competitive bid process. I don't believe that you should go with the lowest bidder. I've never believed in that. I think that you go with you allow them to give you a number that they know they can do the work for. Right. And if you will allow them to make money, you're going to get a much better job, you're going to get better material, better quality, and first and foremost, I mean, your project will come first to them. Just strictly because they're not there on a competitive bid basis, they're allowed to make money. So to answer your question, yes, we're committing up front. And that's the best thing to do.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, if you're committing up front, we're basically getting a team, building a model that can be used not only on this project, when we go to the next project. I mean, and the key thing, like Maya Cinema, they have a scholarship fund. That scholarship fund is set up for kids in this community. Not from kids out of the community, but kids in this community to receive that scholarship fund. And I think that he will actually, Matsuma Espaza, who started Maya Cinema, under his scholarship fund, they actually will have monies available for kids that actually are C students in school. And I think it's very, very important because all of our kids are not going to go to college.
Right.
I mean, everybody's not going to be college bound. Everybody's not, you know, good with the books. I mean, someone's going to do what we got to do to get through it and get out, you know.
Right. This will provide for them.
This will provide for them. It gives them options.
Yes.
I mean, we also work with the unions. The unions have committed that they will get people in their apprentice programs that live in this community. And the one unique thing about going into an apprentice program, whether it be for concrete, pipe fitting, electrical, I mean, whatever it may be for, it gives them a skill and a trade that they can work out of this community.
Exactly. They can move on from that point.
And all that can be started right here. And one of the selling points I use with the unions is that at one point in time, the unions control 48% of the workforce. And the reason being because when a lot of the people in the South migrated to Detroit and other places and went to work for these car manufacturing companies and some of the various other jobs they took on, they automatically joined the union.
And the union became very strong.
Very strong. But I think that one of the downfalls of the unions is that the unions have now moved out of the minority area, and as a result of that, they control less than 12% of the workforce now. So I think the union now realize they've got to go back into these urban areas, the inner city areas, because these are the people that need them most.
Sure.
And the unions need them.
Now, you've talked to the union.
Absolutely. We have a very good working relationship with the unions.
Right.
And the unions normally have in the past invested in projects that I've done. I mean, because I do believe in bringing livable wage jobs and not minimum wage jobs.
Right.
And I think that, I mean, I've heard a lot of people say, well, you know, this class of person won't work, that one it won't work, they won't get it. But the thing about it is, I think that if you hire somebody to go out there and pick up paper or pick up trash, if that's really not what they want to do, they're going to do it just to get by. But if you give them an opportunity that they can learn a trade to really make some serious money, and when I say serious, I mean $20, $30 an hour, so they can afford to buy a home, so they can afford to buy a new car, so they can have the health benefits, you're going to see a different person.
Oh, absolutely.
You're going to see a different person.
So that's what the Englewood Promenade will be offering.
That's exactly.
I want to just mention something that I was thinking as you were talking about the project. I'm a theater person. I'm from the theater. I was born and raised practically on the stage, and I've created opportunities for actors and writers and designers and dancers and choreographers and producers, theater people. And I learned a long time ago that if you put a theater company in a community and create opportunities for these, and there are a lot of young people out there, like you said, they're not going to go to college. They might not, but there are a lot of talented youngsters out there that could really use something like a program. The theater can be a profit-making entity, but it could also have attached to it a training program. And I thought I'd just throw that out there while you're still at the drawing board. You're actually past that project, but I mean past that point. But.
Well, look, we say that, I mean, that's one of the things that makes a community. I mean, just what you're just speaking of.
Absolutely.
You need to have arts and that part involved in the community. Yeah. If you don't, I mean, it's not complete. It's not whole. And cities that do have, such as what you just mentioned, these art centers and bring the culture to it, they're more successful.
Okay, John, it's the project sounds wonderful. It's very innovative and it's very, very large. How much is it going to cost? And before you answer that question, how is the city going to be involved in this? Because there seems to be some controversy about their participation and the cost of this thing. So talk on that.
Well, basically, the first answer is this project, we're estimating the cost around approximately about $430 to $450 million in that range. And the reason I'm trying to give you that scale because of the cost of materials due to the Hurricane Katrina, you know, all the damage and stuff it's done, and the fact that everything in that particular market has to be rebuilt. It has driven up the price of the lumber and material and everything else.
So we're talking $500 million.
Right. Okay. I mentioned to you earlier on the financing, I mentioned to you about CalPERS and CalSTRS that they actually have created funds set aside. We actually have a forward term sheet already from a company called Abco Capital Research, a gentleman by the name of A.J. Villalobos. A.J. Villalobos is the urban investment advisor for CalPERS. So he's already given us a forward takeout term sheet for $329 million. So we have that in hand today. So, I mean, we want to get a good public-private relationship joint venture with the city. And obviously the city's going to have to play some role to help bring a project like this about. We also had an economic impact study done. So based off of the economic impact study, we know that this project would generate $7.5 million a year in tax revenue. I mean, and I think that we're actually talking to the city and asking the city to use some of these dollars to help meet the shortfall with all of the construction increase as a result of Hurricane Katrina. And we're working with the various, with the council, trying to solicit the support to make that happen. But what you have here is a project that does a lot. It cleans up a blighted area. It brings jobs in. It creates wealth within the community. I don't know how you would take the amount of wealth that would be created in the community, as I stated earlier, through the insurance agent, the amount of money they would make, the amount of jobs they would create, amount of jobs they would create. I don't know how you would calculate the impact that those funds that they would earn would have on the city's coffer.
Yeah.
But you got to know it's going to have an effect on it.
Absolutely.
So so the way we look at this $7.5 million, this is a minimum. That's where it's going to start. That's where the number will start at. And this is an aggressive project, but I can tell you, it can certainly be done. We're getting the interest from the retails. We're very close to actually cutting a deal with Kohl's. We know once we get our deal signed with Kohl's, we can go to 80, 85, 90% pre-lease without any problem.
Very ambitious project, but very possible. And would it have an effect on the project across the street, the other areas that are going to be developed?
It would, and let me explain how it would affect the 266 proposed development across the street from us there. If you look at the Inglewood market right now, prior to getting the Targets and the Home Depots and the ones that you have there, you had Food for Less, Dress for Less, and a lot of stores like that. Those stores had to come to make it possible for Targets, Bed Bath & Beyond, Home Depot, and a lot of these others that have come, Costco. So you have to have the entry-level stores in order to get to where you are now. Mm-hmm. With the Kohl's, the Wicks, and the tenants that we're working with, it's going to raise the bar for what will be done across the street over there. You'll get a totally different type of a more higher-end retailer that will come in as a result of what we're putting on our site. Because we're actually filling that niche or that void for these, for this middle category retail tenant.
Mm-hmm. And you are raising the bar.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And as I mentioned earlier, by cleaning up blight, and having this type of development across the street from, it'll make them do something nicer over there. And they'll literally have to come in with better designs than what we have, mm-hmm. because of the type of retailer that they're going to have to attract, and that they will attract. I think it's going to help spawn the cleanup of Century Boulevard back toward the airport. Mm-hmm. And all that's going to be very important to the retail market and the business community in Inglewood.
And because it's so close to the airport,
yes,
that would really create something rather fantastic.
I think that Inglewood is I think Inglewood has a lot of possibilities there, to create a more diverse market. I think there's a lot of opportunity to do a conference center, mm-hmm. in Inglewood, considering the proximity of Inglewood to the airport. Why would anyone need to go downtown LA?
Almost walking distance.
And if you bring in a conference center, guess what? You can get a bunch of hotel rooms. Hotel rooms pay a lot of taxes. A lot of taxes.
So raising the bar for Inglewood is what we all want to achieve.
Yes, sir.
And on that note, John McDonald, thank you so much.
And thank you for
joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll see you all in the next edition.